was a book review of the history of the Marvel Universe. Now, it is definitely not our universe, it's the Marvel Universe, because there's a lot of weird bits of science and timings in this that I found all over the place. However, 224 pages, it's a Treasury edition, slightly smaller than your average Treasury edition in terms of width, etc., because they were quite big Treasury editions. However, it is slightly thicker because it's got 224 pages, came out in 2020, and I really, really love this book. It's really, really nice. There's not really one coherent story all the way through. There's like not characters. You go, oh, there's two characters who are in the story all the way through, and that's Franklin Richards and Galactus. At the end of time, basically, Galactus is telling the story of what happened. Obviously, somehow, because of something, he knows everything that happened. All the various events, all this, the origin of the universe, etc. Because he came from an earlier universe, so he knows a little bit about that, obviously, as well as the origins of ours and all the rest of things. And nothing particularly about the protons, electrons, and how the galaxy all form and that sort of stuff. That's not. It's all about the elders of the universe, Watcher, and all those sort of things, all the characters that are in the Marvel universe. Now, a few billion years, if not quite a few billion years, are devoted into about 2 or 3 pages. So you get past that. Once you've got past all the various Celestials, Watcher, etc., and also the Nova Corp and the blue areas of the Kree, and then you're into the more, even the lovely bit with Egypt. So we get, weirdly, actually that's a point that I hadn't thought about, poor old Conan, because I would have thought would have been when they got the licensing back from Conan. Conan would have been mentioned, some obviously Carl and all that sort of stuff, would have had a briefest of mentions in here. However, he doesn't. But there's the sort of timely universe, the timely comics. But there's been a lot of retrofitting. So you've got sort of retrofitting of some of the characters. So you've got Iron Fist somehow retrofitted back into the storyline of timely comics. Then you've got also Atlas comics as well. And of course, events that was all put in a lot later in the 70s, 80s, 90s, back into the 40s, 30s, etc. There's a few issues, before I get any further into talking about the book, which I think is just a brilliant book and beautifully drawn by Javier Rodriguez and Alvaro Lopez. And also, of course, brilliantly written by Mark Waid. It's this, the actual cover is slightly bigger than the actual book. And this is a soft paperback. So what happens, unfortunately, also going to the post, it's sort of bent in and dented. So obviously falling down and dented, and all of it has been dented. Also, the usual problem with these things, they always get dents on the spine. However, there's another problem. You've got this lovely white on the back, and it's felt. So you've got this sort of felt, soft feeling. And unfortunately, that's a tendency if you've got ink or you've read a newspaper or something, you suddenly get your fingers, you can start seeing black marks on it. Not an issue with the front, however, the back does seem to get marked quite easily. There's lots of, where I've put the book down, I can see the marks on the, obviously I haven't scrubbed down the surface to make certain like a pristine condition surface. There's obviously, back into the book itself, the beautifully coloured. I think the colouring is great. I love the colouring. I love this. Was it History of Marvel Comics 1 to 6? Obviously they've been, I don't know if they were big sized or not. I assume that it was standard comic size. I didn't get them. But you got lots of stories of Marvel stories, obviously the Norrin Rad, obviously Zen Allah, the origin of Silver Surfer. You've got some beautiful shots. And that's the one thing that's really good all the way through this book. If there's no real coherent story in a sense, there is at least lots of great panel shots, full page shots of many of the characters with lots of montage of other characters, etc. Also got the variant covers, which are quite nice. Just put the variant covers of the issues. And you've got lots of history that I didn't know of the Marvel Universe. This is the thing that's really quite nice. Lots of books, I think, oh, I must go and check out this book or that book or whatever. So I would go and explore some of these stories. And luckily, there is a massive reference at the back. It's about 100 odd pages of where all this story came from. So I'll just go through that as well at the end. You've got Irene Adler there. You've got character Dominic Fortune, Iron Fist, like I say, retro-fitted back into the 30s, etc. Of course, Angel. Now, that was the Timely Comics character, not the one with the X-Men. You've also got the true origin of Marvel Comics and Timely Comics before all of the Galactus story, etc., ever existed. You've got the Human Torch being created as an android by the scientist Alton. And you've got Submariner, Red Skull, and you just got some really just beautiful full page. This is a double page spread. Got lots of like Red Raven, Miss America, got the Sergeant Fury, of course, again, retrofitted back into this time. Of course, the comic itself came out in 1963. You've got also a bit of retrofit in terms of Zemo and Bucky Barnes and Steve Rogers, because, of course, reality is Captain America, back in Timely Comics, just faded away. Nothing really remarkable. Sadly, the comic just got turned into a horror comic and didn't end up getting this, but they just obviously made a more dramatic ending for it. And it's full, obviously, stuff from the Invaders. You've got Miss America, etc. Even that, I'm certain Miss America wasn't in those stories. However, maybe it was. We got brilliant. I love that. Beautiful, Fantastic Four first scene there. Obviously, even the rep showing the picture on there of them going off cosmic rays, etc. Bruce Banner, just page after page. This is just full of. You've got the Phoenix, you've got Captain America, She-Hulk, and it's just beautiful, beautifully drawn all the way through. Lots of dramatic things. Chronologically, I would argue about. I mean, I'm certain that people would say, yes, it definitely follows exactly right. There's bits of it I think, I don't see how that could have been fitting in that time exactly at that moment. Just too much. And also, of course, and I love the bit, there's a slight bit, obviously what happens in the future. You've got Killraven and those sorts of things, and Kang, obviously. However, of course, the universe went on for millions and billions of years. A lot more will happen. I am certain that many, if Marvel Comics is still going in 1 billion years' time, and maybe they will be, who knows? There'll be still being, and maybe there'll be some variations of Spider-Man that we can't even conceive at this point, or the Fantastic Four. I am certain that there'll be, and the X-Men. Because these legends, they're like basically the gods. Asgard, they're like Zeus, etc. They are superheroes, super legends, and I'm certain some of these maybe will go on, maybe they won't. I don't know. Who knows? I won't be around to know. So that's the one that was disappointing thing about life, and you can't read all the books that are ever going to be written, and you can't read all the comics that probably will be written and drawn. Ho hum. Unless you can. Unless someone needs to invent a time machine. Killraven, Kang, and so on and so on. But it's great. The thing that I like about this book is also the framing element. You've got Franklin Richards and you've got Galactus. And you've got them at the end of the universe. And I love that bit. I love that story. They did that sort of like in DC Comics as well with the end of the universe one, which I thoroughly enjoyed. The Book of Magic. That was just a really great story where the character, I think it's always nice. However, sadly, probably the end of the universe will be slightly different from this, depending on lots of things. Also, you've got this great reference at the back, which I think is even a nice touch. Annotations, as it says. They actually split, of course, into different books. I don't know if these were included. I assume these were included in the original comic books. I don't know. I didn't get the originals. However, you've got lots of, obviously, the actual panels, not the redrawings of the panel. You've got the actual panel, like here, Human Torch executed Hitler. What if, issue 4? Now, I don't know whether he did actually execute Hitler. However, you've got Thor as well. Iron Man, Tales of Suspense 39. Obviously, and so on and so on. There's just lots. And the thing is, good about this, it means that when you're looking at this, you think, right, I can go off and find that book. So it's really quite useful as a sort of quick, I'm going to get that series, because the only depressing thing, of course, is sometimes you find out it's an epic collection or something and it's like 700 quid. So it's a crazy price. But if you can, of course, you think, oh, I must go and look for that series. Like recently I watched a video of some omnibus edition and I just saw reference to this in this and I thought, oh, I must go and get that. I think, no, another book. However, Devil Dinosaur and so on, and Gwenpool, there's lots and lots. Edge of the Spider-Verse and many, many more. Thane, I must admit, Thane is lost on me in terms of, I haven't read those ones, so. I didn't read these either. The Cabal. I think I read one issue of the Cabal. I don't know. I never liked that really dark sort of story with Norman Osborn. I'm afraid Norman Osborn's stories passed over me completely. A bit like the Skrulls stories. This was, of course, Secret Invasion. But probably a decent story. So again, one of these things you look at and think, maybe I should go and check it out. And then you've got, I love this appendix. Got appendix at the back. And individuals. I think slightly unfair, actually, these individuals, because is that it? There's 2 pages. Now, if you were truly doing the history of the Marvel Universe appendix, individuals, surely it would be like thousands and thousands and thousands, because Marvel must have created thousands over the years. So, appendix groups. Now, groups, that's quite a hard one as well. So, at least it's got my favourite. Agents of Atlas, that's something. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Champions, of course, it's got 2 champions at this point. Great Lakes Avengers. No West Coast Avengers. Maybe they weren't featured in the book. However, that's not an issue on that. I'm just going to go and say this is just an absolute gem. It's one of the books I'm certain that you will look back in and just pick it up once in a while. Maybe you'll read it once or twice, and then. But I think this is one book. 20, 30 years time, you'll pick up and look for it. And of course, by that time, they probably retrofitted the whole lot again, and you'll look and think, well, that's not my history of the Marvel Universe anymore, because everyone will have different histories of the Marvel. If they brought one out like in the 60s, history of the Marvel Universe, of course, it would have been different from this history of the Marvel Universe. But still, a lovely book, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. Definitely worth getting. Brilliant.